Excited, cannot tell you how excited I am. I've been talking to this guy, Sam Mizrahi, as we're warming up. On today's episode is a Second Chance podcast. This guy's a visionary entrepreneur, founder of Mizrahi Developments, one of Canada's leading luxury rental or residential developers. From transforming Toronto's skyline with groundbreaking projects like the one to mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs, Sam's journey is marked by resilience, innovation, and a deep commitment to community. Having faced and embraced second chances in both his personal and professional life, Sam brings unique insights on navigating challenges and seizing opportunities. Get ready to be inspired. This is one of the topics I love talking about, so just teaching people how to make money. And when you use the word luxury in your introduction, Mr. Sam, I think that speaks volumes and helps tee everyone up to where hopefully this conversation is going to take you and I. If it's anything like our warm up, better buckle up, folks, because Sam's gonna run you out of your seat. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for being here and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Toronto skyline, luxury real estate. Um, Whenever those come in, just knowing things in my lifetime, it always is going to come with some kind of second chance, whether it's in personal life, professional life. Just kind of walk us through that journey of your experiences and detail us how that helped transform your journey to kind of help you get to where you are now.
I think anytime any individual is going to go do something great for them, you're going to end up hitting a lot of second chances and a lot of what I would consider challenges throughout it. Because if you didn't have them, then you're not striving hard enough and you're not reaching out high enough. I mean, you're when you're going to really reach beyond your typical abilities and you want to dream big, and you should always dream big because it takes the same effort and energy to achieve, I think, little dreams than big dreams. So go and achieve big ones because the same effort and energy and passion is going to go into them. You're going to hit the challenges. You're going to hit those roadblocks, I call them, and the key with them is to overcome them and to know that they're designed and know that they're going to come, and you are going to get second chances, and you are going to get it right, and you're going to overcome them. And the resilience and the persistence is required, and they're often used as a pause button to have you reevaluate what you're doing. I kind of look at like the universe's or God's pause button to sort of have you take a step back and say, okay, where am I? What do I need to do? What do I need to deviate in order to achieve that success? And that's how you get your second chance at achieving that success. They're not designed to fail you. The second chances, or what I call those challenges, are designed to actually navigate and help you re-navigate your journey so you can get to the goal that you want to achieve. So you got to look at it as a positive. It's not a negative. I've never viewed the challenges I've come as negatives. I look at them as positive because a lot of the setbacks are actually set up in order to be able to launch you forward to actually get to the finish line that you want to achieve.
Sam, where does that come from? When you're in the middle of it, like when you're in the middle of this setback or this, you don't, sometimes you're inside of a box or you don't know that there's hope coming, right? It's the end of the world. I've like, you're like, oh man, this is it. And where do you reach into, or what is that go-to guide that helps you find that moment of that's just a learning experience? Was you taught that at an early age, or where did it come from?
It's more than a learning experience. I don't know if you're ever taught it. It's something that you can, it starts to, I think, take place in your hope or your belief system of knowing that at the very end, the confidence level has to come to knowing that you are not going to fail unless you give up. Like
Yeah.
most failures occur when you actually give up yourself and you say, I'm done. And if you look at anything, when you quit something, it's you that's making that choice that I'm not going to pursue it anymore. In a lot of the cases, I'm not saying in all the cases, but in a lot of the cases. But usually when that happens, there's a better path for you. A lot of even those door closures are set up in order to open up a much better doors than the path you've been on. I've looked at, a lot of the setbacks that I've seen, a lot of friends, family, my own self, my own journey, and every setback that I've had actually in a crazy way at the time seemed as if it was disastrous. But when you go forward, fast forward 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, 6 months, and you survive it, you're actually on a much better path. And the trick is to get through that weather. It's like kind of like a weather system. You're flying through weather, right? You're going to go through the thunderstorms, you're going to go through the cloud, but you're going to reach the sunny skies. It's just a time period to get through it. And if you can get yourself above the clouds, you are going to reach sunshine. And there are times where you think, I'm not going to make it, or I shouldn't make it. And I believe if you actually want to achieve it and you take the time to reset a lot of what you were doing and look at a different approach to what you were doing, you're going to get a much different result that's going to get you into a very different path in the second chance. A lot of it, there's that old definition saying, what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We often do that to ourselves without realizing it and then saying, well, why did we fail? But if we make different choices and we make different actions based on those setbacks and then reposition ourselves, you will find that you actually catapult forward. And sometimes those setbacks are designed to, as I said, sort of be the pause button in the universe or by God to sort of have you reevaluate it and then to figure out how to reset or to reposition yourself on a different path. That's going to be way better.
I keep notes here for when I do podcasting on my own. Sometimes it comes up in our conversations just for stuff that I teach on. And I always teach growth's not always up. Or one of my things that I'll teach off of is growth's not always up. And when I'm sitting here as you're speaking, my notes have failure's the best teacher.
Sure.
Over to the right there, right? And I think you hit it spot on. And folks, Sam's, we're going to hopefully get into this a little bit. Sam's not he's just not coming out and starting fresh and all these things like this. This guy's been in business and he's done amazing things. And with that becomes, he's when you say real estate in the last 4 years, he went through COVID at some point in time and downturns and economic downturns. So it's a lot to process when you're in that moment of trying to just figure it out. But just know, like, hey, you're still awake, you're still alive, you're still moving, and you can just evaluate, do a quick inventory of what happened and what lessons do we learn, and start figuring out a plan to step forward. Sam, I wanted to ask you too, and I kind of teed it all up as we jumped right into it, but you did you start right into real estate coming out, or what's kind of give us that overview of your journey into entrepreneurship?
So I started in actually consumer electronics when I was a teenager in high school, and I was selling
Yeah.
batteries and tapes. Like I'm talking Maxell, XL2S, VHS tapes, Betamax tapes. A lot of the listeners probably won't
Yes.
remember what those are, but
Hey, I'll send my demographics to you. I don't think you're too far off.
right.
Of most folks are 10. I just turned 50 this year. Most folks are 34 to 54 or 34 to 45. So about 10 years, 5 to 10 years behind me. So close enough.
Right. So I started selling VHS tapes and Betamax tapes, and I ended up getting the distribution rights at that time for Sony and TDK selling the blanks magnetic vision, division of their product,
Yeah.
which was the T120 VHS tapes, and I was selling Duracell batteries and cassette tapes like Maxell and things like that. And I built that business out of high school from nothing, basically doing import export and wholesaling, and built the business up to over $18 million a year while I was still in school. And that was just, 5 cents at a time, and just and grew the business at that time. I started it in 1987, 1988, and
Yep.
in 1990, laser discs came out, even before CD-ROMs and before anything that we are now. So the end of what I call the blank audio video cassette market was coming to an end, and I knew that CD-ROMs were coming out, and that was going to be the end of it, and we are going into the electronic age. So I sold the business in 1989, 90 on that boundary. Q4 of 89, Q1 of 1990. And I was looking for a different business to get into because that business basically was dying and you had to transform. So I was like, what am I going to do? In 1990, I was searching. 91, I started to look at what to do, and we hit a recession. And the world, at that time, both the US and Canada hit a real estate recession. And I was like, okay, what business can I now go into that had some recessionary insulation? And so I went into the dry cleaning industry, and I said, okay, urban metropolitan centers. I opened up dry cleaning stores out in California. I moved from Canada to Los Angeles and started a new venture there. I was 21 years old, and I was looking at building the best luxury dry cleaning operation in an urban metropolitan center. And I figured that was going to have insulation towards recessionary times, and built that business both in the US and Canada, to 98 stores, and took it public. And we had 98 retail stores. We were doing, everything from the police department to the fire department to ambulance
Yeah.
to restaurants to retail outlets to, and we grew the business very, very well over, a span of over 14 years. And then we took it public. And then, of course, we got unionized and had to go through restructuring for that. So there were challenges that were hit all the time.
Yeah.
And I ended up divesting of that business in 2007 and completely, but I was actually out by 2003 that I had sold out. And then I went into real estate from 2007 forward completely.
Folks, if you don't remember, 2007 was what we call a extreme housing downturn. But if you had money, it was a great time to step into the real estate market. And I don't know if you benefited from that. I want to pause real quick. Um, Folks, if you have kids, if you have young entrepreneurs, this is where we kind of hit pause and go back and listen to what Sam just told us. And here's why I say this is we're not talking about washing cars and running a paper route. We're talking about very, very significant impact into business at a very, very young age. Where does this entrepreneurship, where does the drive, is this from family, born like this? Where does that come from, Sam?
It really came from my father
Yeah.
and my mother, both of them. I wanted a job at 16, 15 because I needed money and I wanted to make money. And I was at that age where, the allowance money wasn't cutting it anymore. And I was looking to get a job. And my father said, I'm really proud of you that you're thinking about getting a job, but why don't you think about how to create jobs?
Yeah.
He said, instead of thinking about, okay, I want to go think about how you're going to create jobs. And he said to me, if you can create jobs, you got yourself a job for life. And I was thinking about that and what did it really mean? And he was saying, go out and figure out how you can employ others to help you do what you want to do and bring a group of people together and give everybody jobs instead of just getting a job for yourself. And it was that mindset when I was 16 that made me think, and I started, okay, let's go and figure out how I can do something where I'm going to need more than myself to do it, and I can have people share in that. And we started with consumer electronics, basically buying blank audio video cassettes and selling them and distributing them to the stores where they wanted only 50 cassettes or 100 cassettes, but they didn't want to buy 2,000 cassettes. And at that time, Sony would say, no, unless you had a minimum order of X amount of pieces every month, we wouldn't sell to you. So we became the middleman and we bought the minimum X amount of cassette tapes that we needed. And I had friends in high school that I paid that helped me distribute it and go and make the deliveries and unpack the boxes and package them and so forth, and started out of high school and then built that up basically, month after month. So.
I tell folks that sometimes you got to start somewhere. As a young kid, I'm glad you echoed that because same thing. I tell my kids that all the time. Like if you're a W-2 employee somewhere, that's what we call it in the States here. If you're an employee somewhere, that's fine. If that's where you end up, that's fine. But I want you to know that entrepreneurship exists. I want you to know what it takes to run and operate a business. And if you can learn how to run a business, you can write your ticket no matter where you end up at. And I think I try to teach them that so they're not miserable. I don't want that saying I want you to do is be stuck in a box. I'm like, I got this job. I can't, I make good money. Freedom. You found all that in freedom at a very young age. Have you ever worked W-2 wise for anyone else?
I
Or paid, like a taxable employee or anything?
I did. I worked when I was 16 years old. The first job I had was working at a exhibition, and it was a summer job that I had, and it was called the CNE, And I worked there, which is like the equivalent of sort of your, Disney World or Universal Studios here. And
Yeah.
and I was in the booths there, and I was working there for the summer, and that taught me a lot as well. Like it's all of those experiences I think make you, and they also identify what you want out of life. Right? Not
Yeah.
everybody is built for entrepreneurship, and not everybody's built
Right.
for so it's really, what do you want out of life? How far you're willing to go, and what are you willing to sacrifice, and knowing that you're going to fail. I failed many times, but I never feared failing. I feared, for me, it was more, a failing of not trying. I'm okay to fail if I know I'm giving something 100%. I'm not okay to fail if I know that I didn't give it 100%, I failed. So
Yeah.
it's a different mindset, I think. So I looked at it, but failure is going to come with anything. There's a price you're going to pay with anything that you're going to do that's going to be outside your comfort zone, and you have to be comfortable with that, because there is an incredible amount of freedom that comes with it. Is it worth it? Absolutely, or else we
Yeah.
wouldn't do it. But it's part of the story, and without risk, there's no story.
Yeah.
Right? So
Risk and sacrifice is what I know a mentor, old boss mentor, good friend of mine tells me all the time. He's like, that's the two things. If I ask him one day, I'm like, sum it up for me. He goes, you don't understand how much sacrifice and how much risk.
correct.
He said you just got to be willing to put it out there. It'll all work out. He says, but when you're getting going or whatever, those are two of the things that people underestimate. It's just how much risk and how much it's all negotiable and navigatable. So don't let that deter you, folks. Finding folks like Sam, or listening to good podcasts like this where you have great business conversations with someone like Sam who's been there, done that, is a great tool as well. Um,
And
let's talk about. Go ahead, Sam.
you climatize to it, Jeff. It builds up,
Yeah,
right? You climatize. It's no different than being in the gym. You climatize to that risk. You climatize to those stresses, and they don't become as as big challenges as they appear to be in your younger years. 20 years ago, when I looked at the failures or looked at the risks I took, they were huge. Today, I look at what I went through 20 years ago, and they're small compared to what they are. So you
yeah.
climatize to it, and you actually grow. And yeah.
You had talked about, or in some of your notes I was reading, just about navigating toxic partnerships, and maybe that's some of the stuff from that earlier on. Net toxic partnerships and relationship, and just how incredibly challenging they are. What specific steps or mindset shifts help you recognize when it's time to move on or look for that second chance or next chance?
I think you got that old cliche saying, which is so true. You're as successful as those you surround yourself with. And you want to
Yeah,
be around people that celebrate you. You don't want to be around people that tolerate you. Over the years, I went from a collection of friends to a selection of friends. I went from a collection of partners to a selection of partners. And I learned that it's very easy to identify bad partnerships. And you can't make a good deal with a bad person. And you have to learn and identify those that don't put you first and are not looking to help you achieve those goals, and separate yourself as fast as possible, because the faster you do that and the faster you move on from those people, the more successful and faster you're going to be, with less pain and less aggravation and less sacrifice, because surrounding yourself with that negative energy of people that want to make sure that you don't achieve that success, or put doubt into that success, or bring that toxicity into it. I thought I could change them, and I thought, oh, you can give second chances to them. They're going to learn, and we can adapt them, and so forth. And yes, there's a lot of times you can, but most of the time, with negative energy or negative people that don't want to see you achieve your goals, it's to separate yourself as quickly as possible and get into a selection of people that really celebrate you and not tolerate you. And it's 50-50. I find it's 50-50. So you just have to surround yourself with that 50% that loves you and wants to see you achieve your goals.
You're say this often. You're going to be a product of the five people you let in your life. Same similar thing, Sam. But you just said something there. You went from a collection of friends to a selection of friends. First time. I've never heard that, and that is an absolute powerful statement, man. And the best way to pick it. And I try to pass that on, and whether I'm podcasting or mentoring or being a dad, is those exact things of what you just summed it up with in that quick phrase, man. And that's a really great way of putting that. Do you have something there, or like a little story that might relate to our folks, to where you had that realization moment, or you had to make that hard decision off a hard conversation? Is there a time that stands out to you that you're like, yeah, this was,
So many of them, Jeff. I can give you
yeah,
different examples, right? I have so many of them now that I look back upon and I say, my God, the first contact I had with this person, really, if I knew what I knew today and I was to pick it apart and did an autopsy on what went on, I would have told you that the very first day I met them, this partnership was not going to work, right? Just like it's all the signs were there. I just chose to ignore them. And I chose
yeah,
to say, oh, we're gonna get through and make it better. So I can think of one particular incident just right now. I have so many, but in 2011, I was partnering up with someone, and it was the first contact meeting that I had with this person. And they came to my office, and came to the boardroom, and they asked the receptionist and the person that let them in and to get them set up and so forth. They asked, "Where does Sam sit?" Said, "Where can we sit?" And whatever you like. And they asked, "Where does Sam sit?" And my EA said, "Oh, Sam sits over there usually, but he sits anywhere, but normally he'll sit over there." And the person went and sat in that chair.
mm, not beside it, in it.
In it,
Uh,
right? So
yeah,
it said a lot, right? It said a lot. Not that it said anything, but it said a lot about instead of sitting beside it, sitting across from it, it said a lot. And when we got into the situation that was a toxicity situation, I realized this is a person that never puts their partner first, never puts the other so there's a lot that you pick up from little details, I would say, that speak volumes, and you just have to look at a lot of the signs, and you want to be around people that share in the success and share in and not look at that you have to lose in order for them to win. So there's lots of examples like that.
yeah, that's a big one, Sam. I've never, like, I've had conflict, or I've had just the things, but one of those coming out of the gate there, to where it's kind of territorial type, or let me exercise my dominance type thing.
But is that a partner you want to have?
Yeah,
Question.
yeah, exactly. Those conversations are not going to go well, and when times are bad, there's going to be a lot of finger
And
pointing,
these are
and
this we haven't even started yet. So imagine you have a partner,
yes,
right? So there's a lot of it, as I said, that you can pick up on early on, and the same comes with friends, right?
yeah,
There's a lot that you pick up in the body language and the conversations, and whether or not these are the selection you want to have in your life that are going to make a positive impact in your life and your family and those around you. You want to be around people that are going to protect you when you're not in the room, not when you're in the room.
yeah, absolutely, man. Great. Folks, listen to that. That's what you've got. Everybody, right now, when you hear that, you got a red flag going off in your life. I just did like a quick inventory of my current relationships, like roll through my Rolodex. I'm going, all right, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Because, like you, I try to vet that a little more. But like, folks, listen to that. You need to do a quick inventory of the relationships that are building, the opportunities that are coming in, and kind of let Sam guide your thoughts there for a minute before you end up in a bad situation. That's a crazy one. I'm glad you. Thank you for sharing that with me, because I've heard some crazy stuff, but never like to that.
That's just one example. There's so many of them, but
Yeah,
and then you can also pick the ones that are great examples, right? Of people that they do things on first encounters that you're like, that's great. That's who I want to be around. Like, and relationships are very much like marriages. People say, "Oh, it's business. It's not personal." It is personal. Business relationships are personal, and because you are actually taking even much bigger risks and spending sometimes a lot more time in those relationships. So you have to make sure that they're relationships that are going to grow you and your family and not impede
Yeah.
you and your family, because they'll impact your family as well. A toxic relationship is going to impact everybody.
Some good advice someone gave me one time, and you think business where it's all competitive and this, that, and the other, and the fellow was like, "Listen, everybody's got to win.
Correct.
Like if you're trying to set something up, or you're trying to make a deal, or partnership, or this, or vendor, whatever it might be, just remember you got to structure it to where everybody wins. And if not
100%.
everybody wins, they're going to ruin your reputation. You're not going to go where you're trying to go. Just factor that into your plan, is making sure that you create a winning plan for everyone, not just yourself.
I agree with that statement 100%.
Um, Mizrahi, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, awesome. And Mizrahi Developments, is that what was born in 2007?
It was
Um,
from nothing.
so that's what I want to ask you way more about that. Um, but now that is one of Canada's leading luxury development firms. Let's talk about that. Kindly, you get started in '07. That had to just ebbs and flow with you just through the nature of it. It's been around for a long time now, so we know that it's deeply rooted. But give us some lessons from kind of start and operation and to where you are now on those second chances that may have came along with that inside of your business, and when you look at that from the leadership perspective and just your operation stuff, give us some insight on what that looks like for you.
Well, in 2007, we started with really employee number one, which was myself, and started the company with. I came out of the dry cleaning industry, went into the construction development industry, and started with one house. And 2008 came along, and we hit the liquidity crisis in 2009 and 2008,
Yeah.
and everything, including real estate, crashed. I mean, it crashed at a point of like 50%, and banks had called the loans. And I was at that point into my first two projects already in 2007. So I was in construction in the middle of it, and we hit the 2008 financial crisis and 2009. And it was a very dark time in real estate. I mean, everybody thought at that
Yeah.
time the world was coming to an end. The banks were, failing. There was a lot going on in terms of real estate. So I come out in 2007 being the best time of real estate, and a year later hitting a global economic disaster that was beyond my control. And I had a choice, either to fail at that point or to break through it. And of course, I continued through in 2008, 2009. The banks had, basically they were not lending. I had to get refinancings done, complete the projects, get out of 2009, sold the houses finally after almost a year. And then in 2010, the market came right back up. And it came back up with a vengeance. And from 2010, 11, 12, 13, the market was rising at a very rapid rate. And we went from building one house to 26 houses. We went into single family, multifamily townhomes. From there, went into mid-rise condominiums. From there, went into the tallest building in Canada, and the first super tall building in Canada. And we went from basically nothing in 2007 and actually being negative in terms of borrowings and building, to building projects that were $2 billion and more under development. And then, of course, we hit COVID.
Yeah.
And the world shuts down for 2 years and then takes another year to restart back up. And then costs are now up another 50, 60. So we had an incredible run from, let's say, 2010, 11 until 2020. So that's a pretty good run. And then, of course, we hit the unprecedented, unforeseen COVID situation. And Canada had some of the toughest COVID lockdowns.
I was going to say, you did Canada COVID, Sam, not.
Yeah, just some of the toughest in the world, and we lost 3 years in the middle of a
Yeah.
construction projects. And 3 years later, when you did reopen 2.5 years later, the prices were up 40 to 50%. So we had to navigate that, and we had to restructure, 2 or 3 of our projects like that, and come out of it and continue to finish them and build them, and go through the same thing we saw in 2009 and 2008. I saw, and 2008 and 2009 actually prepared me unknowingly
Yeah.
in this universal way for what I was going to have to encounter in 2023 and 2024.
Yep.
And if I had not gone through 2009 and 2008, and I had not built the resilience or had not gotten vaccinated to that type of challenge, I would have never survived what we went through with a $1.6 billion restructuring on the one, and COVID, and how to navigate those waters. And I thank sort of the resilience I got and the inoculation I got from the liquidity crisis and the financial crisis in 08, 09 to prep me for what's to come. And it was bigger and better. And you get bigger and better at it. So it's not as if the challenges become bigger, but so does the opportunities and so does the freedom. So I never look back and regret anything that happened. I look at them and I say, thank God those happened, because it actually propelled me forward and gave us the strength to go. So you're going to hit the challenges. Everyone's going to hit them. Just if you can get through them, you're going to come out further than you ever were before. And you're going to actually look back and say, I'm actually better off now than I was before.
COVID is one of the few to where I remember we had a couple projects we were trying. One of them was opening a gym, and they were shutting gyms down, especially group exercise. We were in the process of opening our first gym, and I remember I would wake up with a plan, and within it seemed like minutes that plan would get squashed because of regulations, not the market, not normal things. And I remember my wife saying like, "Hey, what's your thoughts?" And I was like, I don't know. And I was starting to get at a loss, right? And the kind of the boot she gave me was she stops and turns and looks at me. And she's like, "It's the first time we've ever said you didn't have a plan."
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So then I tell her now, or I'll tell like my guest when it comes up like it does now. It's like there's so much uncertainty in the world, and even for someone like us who preach like, hey, pivot, move, have a plan. Have a plan for the plan. Good, best, worst. There's no failure. All those things. Like it was really, I was like, holy crap, man! It kept shutting. Every door kept closing, but still keep going. Keep going. We put a bunch of pivot plans in place, and it got to the point where and I'm out of Virginia, so it was at the time we were very. Virginia was a lot like Canada.
Yeah.
You go a state over, and they're open for business and life's no. So uh, politics either played a lot of role into whether we were open or closed, and so, we started kind of noticing that too, and then it was short lived, and then we was able to start kind of crawling back out of it. That's a big deal, Sam. It's just you're like you said is all those things. Tomorrow, for folks that's listening to this, this is January of 2025, January 7th. I'm teaching on a pivot plan tomorrow. I came up with an outline. I got the acronym pivot. It's kind of my anchor. And I got a call and they were like, "Hey, we want to work on just teaching people how to pivot." And I'm like, "Holy crap! I got tons of stuff to work on that." So I really sat down and developed. I try not to PowerPoint or a slideshow, so I got it all kind of laid out on a Google Doc so I can share it with them and they can print, and then it has them kind of a game plan with it as well. So just a pivot plan. Um, Man, it's and all right. What I wanted to know from you: did you get risky in those good years, or did you remain consistent in your building during that like 10 to 19 phase? Was you like solid business, or did you get risky?
I didn't get risky. I grew the business and continued to grow it and took bigger calculated risks. So we
Yeah,
went from building single family homes to townhomes to um, 9-story buildings to 12-story buildings to 85-story buildings.
yeah,
And so we were growing the business in a responsible way, and we were taking calculated risks, and of course, growing. But we never thought we were going to encounter a pandemic. I mean,
yeah,
you also didn't, we also never thought we were going to enter the global economic crisis in 2008, right? So or 2009 as well. And so we never, I never sort of thought we were going to hit something like that, but we were growing it. And for 10, 11 years, we had a very good run, and we were growing the business organically and naturally. And those growths were exponential and very large and very big. We didn't increase the risk in terms of doing something risky, but we were doing developments that were much more meaningful and
Yeah.
much more impactful, and they were much larger developments, but they were developments that were necessary and needed to sort of break the barrier in Canada. Canada had never built a super tall building. You've got super tall buildings in the US, in Europe, everywhere in the world. It's an international city, and Toronto, was becoming an international city in 2014, 15. And we wanted it from an architectural standpoint to also be able to be on the stage of international cities from a landmark standpoint. And there
Wow.
wasn't a landmark that had really been built since the 70s, which was the CN Tower in Toronto. And so we were doing something great. We got our sports teams, we got the Toronto Raptors, we got
Yep.
our, NHL hockey teams of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We did all of this, on the sports side. We started getting Michelin restaurants that started coming to Toronto. There was a lot of things that were happening that would put Toronto on the international map, but we wanted to also develop a building that architecturally did that. And the one did that. And the buildings we were building were doing that. So we were
That's cool.
growing in a way that was challenging, and that was what I would say different than what everybody else was doing, and it was much bigger than anybody else was doing, and we were taking bigger risks without question. But they were calculated. But what we didn't calculate was, of course, COVID.
You built the first tall building in Canada.
Correct.
That's something. That's that's a little mark on your and a positive mark on your legacy, Sam. That's
We're
really
very
neat.
proud of that, and very proud to pave the way for others to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody had done that before, and nobody, the system and the city, had not designed anything for that. And we changed that landscape, and we allowed now to pave the way for other super tall structures to come into Canada, and we were the first to do it. And we're proud of that.
Should
Regardless,
be.
we're proud of it. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, it's just because it hasn't been changed doesn't mean you can't change it. The government wants to work with you. You just gotta make it work. Got to figure out the plan with them and work with them on it. Man, you're a great testament to that because man, that's really neat. I got two more things. I want to guard your time, but great conversation, man. Um, that's neat in itself. When you look at conquering from the old ages or whatever, you conquered this Toronto skyline, and
And it came with challenges, Jeff. Like
yeah,
we ended up with the problems that we ran into with it and the challenges that we ran into it. But all of that, at the end of the day, the building gets built, the building gets finished.
yeah,
And at the
yeah,
end of the day, if we didn't take those initiatives and we didn't pave the way back in 2014, 15 to start this, it wouldn't have paved the way, and it wouldn't give Canada the legacy of now being on the international map to have super tall buildings on the same scale as New York, Chicago, Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, London, right? And Canada needed that. And
yeah.
if you're a pioneer, you're gonna hit those walls, and it's okay. You climb over them.
Man, that's awesome. That's also led you into your just your community engagement and your work you do inside of your communities. How does tell us about that and your perspective on giving back and the legacy that you hope to leave.
I think we have a moral obligation as entrepreneurs, or as anybody that does anything that um, is successful or breeds successful, to give back to the community that helped you achieve it, and helped you, and other communities, the world actually, because
Yeah,
without it, it takes more than one person to put a man on the moon, and anything that you're going to do, you can't do without the support of the community to get you there. And I think, you know, entrepreneurship or and philanthropy are kind of two sides of the same coin. I think they're symbiotic. In entrepreneurship or in business, you're in the business of creating fortunes. And I think in philanthropy and giving back to the community, you're in the business of changing fortunes. And you have to take both of them very seriously and know that you're going to give back. And I think the more you give back, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
The more I gave back, the luckier I got. And I think when you talk about second chances and being able to grow, I think if you have the giving back to the community and helping others, I think there's something in the universe that gives you back. And I always said, I don't do the philanthropy because of that, but the luckier I got was the more I gave back to the community, the more I gave back to people, the luckier I got, and it just worked that way. So.
Any special projects that you work on? Anything you want to share? Any initiatives that you're doing that you want to bring attention to?
We did a lot of different philanthropy work in the past with Habitat with Humanity, with many different organizations out of the cold, many different things over the last 25, 30 years. What I'm looking at now is how can we give back to the world and communities to make the lives of families better and to make the lives of communities better in ways that are unique and not really thought of in the same way as before. So I'm right now going to spend 2025 to figure out how to do that and to change and pivot the giving back in a way that's going to create impacts to the families and the communities that I'm in and not in even, and to see how we can transfer that to other communities. So I'm looking at I'm more focused on really communities and their families and how do we keep those communities and families together in a way and have them grow past COVID and the challenges that we've seen, and to swing that pendulum back in the center, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, definitely anything I can do to help support that mission along the way, and let me know. Even if it's even if it's just helping spread the word on anything that you're doing. But
I'll take
I
what.
wanted to close with it's a great question, I think, to close with, because it's going to it's I think it's a good one to finish up. And before I do though, Sam, do you want folks to get in touch with you?
I'm happy.
Do you have a preferred way?
I'm happy.
What is your
I'm on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me through email. I'm at sam@mizrahidevelopments.ca. So either through my email or on LinkedIn, either way, I'm happy to communicate. If I can help anyone achieve their goals or to bounce ideas off on something on their journey, I'm happy to do that, because I want to see people succeed and
yeah?
thrive, and that's what makes me happiest.
You're a mentor, and you encourage entrepreneurs to dream big and execute as if they had a magic wand. I love that. So what I'd like for you to do now is just, what's one piece of advice you give someone hesitant about taking their own, maybe first, or it could be their second chance in business? What's that advice you would like to leave everyone with?
I think um, don't doubt yourself and dream big is probably the big advice I can give you. Is it takes the same effort and energy to do small things as big things and do big things. And 2025 is the new year. I wish everybody to have a healthy, happy, peaceful, and a very prosperous 2025 and beyond. And set your dreams really big and
Yeah.
look at doing things much greater than you think you're capable of, because you're actually capable of doing things much bigger than you think. And give yourself that opportunity to do that. And don't be scared. Everything you want, Jeff, is on the other side of fear.
It's on the other side of fear. You're right. Sam, you're in what folks, go back, hit pause if you need to. Go back and listen to what this fella told us he did at a very young age. He's always been on something that was very high level from the entrepreneur standpoint. So when he tells you to dream big, he's also living proof, and he has the success there that dreaming big, coming up with a plan to execute that, surrounding yourself with the right people, going from a collection of friends to a selection of friends is key to helping you reach your goals. And man, 45 minutes doesn't do us justice. And I hope at some point in time you'll come back, you and I can catch back up on whatever project you're working on.
Love it.
And if just nothing else, if you'd like to shoot the breeze with the current events or whatever's going on, I would more than be happy to take that opportunity. But I can't thank you enough, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff, and happy, great, and prosperous New Year. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.